disappointing afternoon in Deepdale heading into the October international break. What next for the Addicts? Good evening, everybody. Welcome into the From the Verified podcast. My name is Callum Alston, and this is the review of the game at Deepdale on Saturday. It's a Monday night. I have no idea how many people are going to come in live. So we'll see. I'm going to try not to make this one too long, just because I understand it's a Monday and people have lives to get back to. But yeah, hi Sam, how you doing? But evening, Paul. Paul got to go through the same struggles as me yesterday. He had to watch the Browns live. At least my Raiders were on the were only on the TV screen. God, it was tough. But yeah, we'll try and keep this one relatively brief, just because it's a Monday. So yeah, pardon me. Goodness gracious. Not used to doing it on a Monday. So where are we? Saturday. That was a tough day. To anyone who was up there with me, whether you I'm going to slightly exclude the coach crowd because it sounds like they got up all right. Anybody that battled the elements on on Saturday on the rails, I feel you. That was absolutely ridiculous, incredibly stressful, and honestly not a performance worth going through the hassle to get up to. It was a real struggle, as it usually is when we go to Deepdale. We'll talk about some of the manager's decisions because I think there's been some stuff kind of going around that I agree with, and some things that I disagree with, and some things that maybe I disagree with, but I can understand. And that's normally what we try to do on this podcast, is sort of at least understand why decisions were made. I think there are many other places you can go where people have really good opinions. But I think sometimes people sort of jump to an opinion, and I try to sort of understand why a decision has been made, even if I end up disagreeing with it. So let's start with the obvious, which was the lineup, which was, I wouldn't say slightly baffling. I understood it when it came out, especially post game when we found out that Amari Bell had some sort of calf issue, and he felt something in his calf. This is something that Luton fans have been telling us. He has a history of picking up little muscle niggles, and this was something that I mentioned. I think it might be in my podcast 2 or 3 if you go back to the summer, where I talked about my lack of belief that we had enough depth on that left-hand side. The way that Josh, there we go, got some more people coming in now. Hi everybody, that's just joining. But when I sort of look at that left side, the way that Josh Edwards plays football, and I like watching the lad. This is not a criticism of Josh Edwards in any way, shape, or form, but the way he plays is quite physical. And if you're someone that plays that physical at that position, you are going to pick up knocks. And especially when the game is at the speed that it is in the Championship, it kind of takes a step up. I think we needed more cover on that side, and I don't think we necessarily got that. I think it would be absolutely disastrous to see Ibrahim Fuller at left wing back in a Championship game, and that's not a comment on Ibi, who I've talked about many times on this podcast. I think is a really, really exciting young talent, but he's not a left wing back. And when you're not playing teams like Stevenage in a cup game, right, and you're playing sort of Stevenage's backups, the pace in the Championship, the strength, especially in the Championship, I think would just completely overwhelm him. And we're basically down to, if Amari Bell is injured, we don't have anyone on that left-hand side, so we have to play an inverted fullback, right? So I got it. The problem with playing an inverted fullback when you're dealing with Thierry Small on one side is that he's so quick. For all of his issues in terms of final ball, and we saw that yesterday. He couldn't put a final ball in. But the real problem with it was that he didn't, because he's so quick. You can't leave Macaulay Gillespie alone one-on-one with him. And so you couldn't play one of the more attacking options. And I understand there were people that were saying, why don't we just play TC at left wing back? He's played there before. People saying that uh, you could play Rob Apter there. I don't think you can. He's a player that likes to cut inside and shoot, and it created a real problem to not have a left wing back in that particular game. I think more so than most games you're going to play this season, just because of Small's pace. The thing is that we watched the whole game, and I think any of us that sort of watched Thierry Small last year, we sort of sat there and went, the guy can't put a final ball in very often. But when you're giving him 7 or 8 opportunities to get the ball in the box, one of them will go right. He's a professional footballer, right? And the problem was that if we played an actor, he would just be able to consistently launch balls into the box. So what I think Nathan was trying to do was, in putting Ramsey on that side, he knew that Ramsey wouldn't get forward, because Ramsey doesn't get forward on his strong foot. But by putting him there, it allows him to sort of have a defensive cover. The problem with that is when you lose all the attacking outlet down that side, you're absolutely reliant on that point. At that point on Tyrese Campbell beating 2 or 3 players. And Tyrese Campbell beating 2 or 3 players in League One, okay, maybe. Tyrese Campbell's not beating 2 or 3 players very often in the Championship, and especially not players like Jordan Story, for example, who are experienced, large, strong, big lads. You just couldn't get him behind, and then you're reliant on Carey to play a game that he's not necessarily the strongest at, which is playing that final ball. So he does a lot of things very well, Sonny Carey, don't get me wrong, but he's not creative, quote unquote, in that way, I would say. I think he's more of a box crasher, and he's actually more of a press machine, really, but he's not a bad box crasher. But really, what we saw was that we didn't have that creativity going forward. The no shots on goal will tell you that. Yeah, we had a couple of opportunities. I think some of the reaction in the crowd, for example, to the one that Miles has missed, was a bit over the top. It was a decent opportunity. Probably should have done better with it, but it's a difficult ball when you sat behind the goal. Sam was sat next to me, can say, sat behind the ball's kind of curving out. It was a difficult ball to get on the end of. We had Callum on a breakaway in the second half. He's got Tyrese Campbell going past the first man. Charlie's done everything right. And for some inexplicable reason, he crossed it in the air to a player that I don't think's ever won a header for us. So when you don't have the creativity anyway, players can't make those sorts of quote-unquote mistakes. And they're not horrible errors, right? But the pressure is, because we don't score enough goals, the pressure is you have to take every opportunity. And then the goal we concede, I understand Nathan's frustration. That is our throw, right? And, a blind man could have seen that was our throw, and 4 officials weren't able to. So I get why he's annoyed, because they then took that throw quickly. So we're a little bit off balance, but we had 2 or 3 opportunities to cut that ball out, right? But I think what Nathan was doing is he likes to do this after sort of games where we haven't played very well. He sort of comes out and makes a slightly ridiculous statement, right? A lot of times I think it's genuine, but I think some of it's the classic manager sort of protecting his players thing. So the real sort of where we sort of run into problems now is that we have to, away from home, we have to score with almost every opportunity. At home, we create plenty. But away from home, maybe we're setting up slightly too defensively, but now we've got a problem. We don't have a left wing back, so we have to set up defensively, because Macaulay Gillespie turns like a lorry, and for all of his good, all the good attributes, which there are many, and I've been a Macaulay Gillespie defender pretty much since he walked through the door, in terms of how he can fit in that system, how, we don't get personal on this podcast, but, how he fits the system. I thought, actually, we signed him for a relatively high fee from Plymouth. I didn't think he was crap. But it's the sort of thing where it's like, if we don't have those creative outlets, every time we create an opportunity, it feels like we have to score, and when we don't, it's this huge thing. And when you've got young strikers, you can't expect them to score with every shot that they take, and that's the issue, right? How many chances did Preston miss, right? 3, 4, 5 across the box where someone doesn't get in the air, or someone doesn't get their foot on it, or, one where Kaminsky makes an absolute world-class save, but he's He's missed from 2 yards that way from the goalkeeper, right? When you look at the strikers they've got, Jefferson's a good player, right? Especially at that level. He's big, he's quick, he's strong, he's good in the air. But, he had 3 or 4 opportunities before he scored. Our strikers don't get 3 or 4 opportunities before they score. And that's the real problem. Sam's asking me a question there. In the situation we're in, would you change the formation? It's difficult because we still wouldn't have a left back, right? That's my concern here, is that when you have 2 players in every position, it looks good, you have the stability. But I don't think changing formation changes it. It just means you end up with more centre backs on the bench. So we're set up as a squad to play this formation. But I think that, and I don't think there are any free agents you can bring in at this point. And Hernandez, I don't think can play at wing back. I might be wrong. Someone was saying he may have played there once when Norwich were 2 or 3-0 down at some point, but that's about it. Pressure to score these possessions sounds like the Browns and see what happens. Mate, at least your team scores. Goodness gracious, the Raiders just like throwing the ball back to the opposition. But if because we don't create enough, we put pressure on, and when we put the pressure on, then players start to lose some confidence. And I think you're seeing that the body language on TC came off. I actually thought he was pretty good on Saturday, but the body language wasn't right. The body language Miles came on, but he didn't look confident. Callum doesn't look confident, right? It feels as if he's going to play the run ball. Sam saying, wouldn't you go 4-4-2 with Bell back at left wing back and TC back as a winger? Does anyone? I mean, this is a genuine question because I'm sure someone does, but I don't know anyone that plays a 4-4-2 anymore. It's a 4-3-3, isn't it? Really, that most teams that play 4 at the back play now. It's only a 4-3-3, I think. Because the problem with the 4-4-2 is you end up with 2 men in midfield, and you can ask Ruben Amorim how that's going, playing a 3 at the back, playing 2 in midfield, right? Like, you need 3 midfielders in the modern game, and I think that I just find it difficult to see how we solve the striker issue at the moment. You look at it and you go, if Harvey Knibb scores that goal at Derby County, which he slices, if that's Matty Godden there, you think, okay, we're taking 3 points at Derby, great. We can all go home happy. We get 3 points this week. We'd be about 9th still. Without that, it feels like a week that's ended on a bit of a downer. It doesn't help that Thierry was the one that scored. Although I just want to be really clear from where I was in the stand. Again, Sam was literally right next to me, so you can sort of say he's in the chat. I didn't think it was the boos were. I think a lot of them were almost like pantomime. They weren't like particular. They weren't like vicious or cruel or anything. They were pretty sort of pantomime. I thought. So I just think that I the reason Small left, none of us really know. It sounds like, and I think this is probably what everyone has assumed has happened, is he signed a pre-contract agreement with them, or basically a fully agreed a contract with them. The issue is, if he's fully agreed the contract, why did it then take him 3 or 4 days to go? Like, you thought he would have just signed the moment he could have signed. It may have officially been announced, but it wasn't sort of known that he was going there really until the first day. It took him 3 or 4 days to make a decision. He left if he left for more money, like we all do that in our jobs. To me, it's a bit of social media nothingness, right? The whole sort of we're gonna confect some sort of rivalry. I don't think it's particularly helpful when you boo. I think some players feed off it, and I don't think it's particularly egregious. I don't think that anyone went above the board. And on this podcast, as anyone knows, we'll call things out if I think things are above the board. It didn't to me. I just don't know who it helps booing a player like that. This is a player that, whether he'd signed a contract or not, he didn't down tools, right? It wasn't like he refused to play like Lyle Taylor. It wasn't like he had some good performances after we played Preston away and all the rest of it. I didn't love the shushing, but I understand why he's done it. I think players really, some of them need to. Some of them just kind of go above it. I mean, Declan Rice sort of smiled at West Ham fans that were booing him, but wasn't, not in like a bad way, just in a sort of like really sort of way. And they get it. Thierry's 21. He's young. So Are we talking the main issue was the statement? Is this the one that he made after the game, Sam? You have to clarify that for me. Um, if that's the one after the game, yeah, I don't think after the game he did anything particularly egregious. I mean for the photo on social media again, I just think it's I work in marketing, right? It's a marketing thing, right? And we gave it to them really. So I don't know. We'll come down the valley. I'm sure we'll be valley. There we go. I've accidentally muted myself. Let me just check the settings. There we go. Everyone hear me? Is that all right? Good. Yeah, I just think it's a whole bunch of nothing really. I understand why fans get riled up about it. I wasn't happy that he went, but it wasn't. Well, he says he'll learn more at Preston. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if him and Nathan have their disagreements. I think a lot of players have their disagreements with Nathan Jones. I'm honest at times. He's young, I think if you're a young player, made a move, and you're suddenly looking at your bank account and you've got 4 times the amount of money coming in for 4 years, you're probably sort of thinking, screw them. I think he wanted a contract extension earlier in the year earlier than we offered him it, and I think that was kind of the thing. I think he thought I've earned it, and they went, no, you haven't, and then I think he probably outplayed the offer that we gave him. And then whether we agreed to up it or not, I don't know. I was chatting to Corley on the way back, and he was saying he'd heard. I don't know if he's released this, so I probably don't know. But he's saying something. There's some some girlfriends as well. I think his girlfriend's Northern, so that potentially could have been a factor. But I think it's much of a muchness, if I'm honest with you. That I think we do need to, it's a player that did contribute, to a promotion. I didn't love the celebration. I didn't love the booing. I think I probably fall in the, I just don't understand the point of it personally. It might be funny the first time, but booing him in the 70th minute when they're bearing down on goal, of course, he gets lucky on the deflection. It's a very Thierry Small sort of goal, isn't it? Right, I think it's probably going to hit Rose Ed if it doesn't take the deflection. It does a nasty deflection over Kaminsky, and I mean, my real thing was as soon as the goal went in, the game was over. You just didn't see us getting back into it. We just didn't have the creativity or the spark. I think we looked tired, and that's definitely part of the problem at the moment. I think second half against Derby looked a bit tired. I think that Nathan Jones made it the fittest team in League One, probably alongside Birmingham. But you can't do that in the Championship. Everybody is fit. Everybody is, next level fit, because if you have one good 6-month period, you're going to get a big Premier League move, right? So I think every player is fit. Every player can run through, and I think the system that we play, it requires so much pressing, so much energy. It wouldn't surprise me. I think we've got another 3-game week, and is it Sheffield Wednesday? Yeah, Sheffield Wednesday, Ipswich, and then Hull. And you look at that and you go, I wouldn't surprise by the time we get to the Hull game if we're knackered. So I think we just, but it kind of goes back to the point I was making last week, which is about expectation management. Yeah, that's my main worries. Once they score, we seem flat and lack leadership ideas. We seem flat. We did seem flat. We were very, very flat on Saturday, and part of that was Preston having an excellent midfield. So I think they were pretty dominant in the middle. I think that's the second time now we've had 2 very large central midfielders take over a game. I think that's probably where having Coventry and Doc together, physically it may not be enough. Although I thought Doc was actually good on Saturday, so it's a bit of a weird one. But that's something I think for Nathan to have a look at. Can Rankin Costello fix that? I'm not sure. Give him some minutes. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, to go back to what I was about to say, but expectation management, right? Hopefully this week is sort of, for anyone that sort of doubts what I was saying, I hope it's kind of brought that back into focus, is that this is going to be really difficult, right? We're not going to win 30 games this year or anything, Like, this isn't a top 6 side, and I don't really know how to, we are. I think that we're a mid-table side from the games that I've seen. I think defensively we're going to keep ourselves in games doing that. But I don't think that this is a side. I don't think in the Championship you can win on moments the way that we did in League One. I think we're going to have to sort of slowly build a side that's more adept at dominating games, and that may take a couple of seasons. And I think that this year is about hope you don't stay up in 21st, you stay up in like 15th, 16th. Next season you push and try and see if you can get up to 10th and 12th. And then, hopefully from that point you can sort of look at playoff promoting, playoff chasing, that sort of thing. But we're going to lose a lot of away games. I think that's pretty obvious. And I think we just need to kind of stick together. I thought the away end was actually pretty good on Saturday. I don't think it was toxic. I think from what I heard, I had to go a bit earlier because of the train chaos. I normally do stay to the end. Sorry, my mic is being really funky. Paul's saying it wouldn't surprise me if Chelsea is loaned out in January. Well, the problem with that, Paul, is that then we have no backup for Coventry, right? So I don't think we can actually loan anyone out. We are literally 2 injuries in midfield away from starting Corey Anderson every week, and I do not think that is part of the. I don't think that's the plan. Right? I think the plan is to have Corey Anderson back to what he really should be, which is a squad player. Getting used to the speed of the game at this level. I think if Matty Godden was in, you probably see a little bit less of Tyrese Campbell at times. You probably see a little bit less of Miles Lieben at times as well. But I just think that we need to be slightly realistic. I think that anyone that goes and gets themselves a goalkeeper who can't kick but is very good at shot stopping tells you what the club kind of expected, right? Plus, then get someone else in. I mean, I guess the question is, and it's a good one actually. I guess for the chat, do we want in Joe Rankin Costello as long as he's not a problem in the dressing room, having a player of that quality to come on is great. The thing with it is, will he get annoyed in the dressing room? Because he was starting to get quite irritated at Blackburn that he wasn't playing, and that I think would be a big concern. I think as we kind of hit, especially at the November period when games come really quick and fast through to Christmas, that's probably where you'll start to see that squad rotation because he'll have to do it. I think that he didn't want to change a team that was doing well. We'll come to Rob Apter in a second because I think he's probably a victim of the same sort of thing. And so I get that. But I think at some point you are going to have a look at that midfield just in terms of physicality. But I don't know if Rankin Costello necessarily gives you that. He actually reminds me of Coventry and his ability to play balls rather than, I think, sort of dominate physically. Maybe in January you have to look for a more dominant midfielder. But again, then the squad size goes back up. So it's all a little bit tricky. What do you do with James Breen? We'll come to that in just a second. But overalls, the performance was about as bad as my trip back from Manchester, and I spent half of it lying down on the floor in a carriage. So that's the only reflection I think that we all need. I just want to get on to Rob Apter just for 1 second, and then I want to come on to Tom Pell, who's just left for Spurs. I just want to talk about the academy and what's going on there. And I just want to spend a couple of seconds talking about the women as well. But firstly, on Rob, I think I know I post on social about this. I think probably all that's happened, and I think a lot of people are overreacting and sort of saying he's not playing, he's not coming on. I think he probably should have come on as a sub. But I think that with Rob, all it is that Bree has been so good, and up for PFA Player of the Month, you can't really drop him. I think that probably when he came off at Derby, Jones hedged his bets when actually I'd like to try and hold on. We can't get the second goal, And so I think that's probably all it is with Rob. I don't think it's anything personal, to be honest with you. We're like him against Blackburn, I think, especially when we're in the ascendancy. But then Bree scored the goal, right? So I sort of understand it. It doesn't look it from the sidelines. Apter looks like he's laughing and joking, and I think he gave Nathan a big high five after Blackburn. He gave him a handshake after Derby as well. So I don't think there's any animosity there. I think some people are probably reading a bit too much into that. It's probably as simple as Bree has been so good. Probably the same thing for Nibs and Costello, right? Rankin Costello, probably the same sort of thing. and Championship to HMS is the bottom half of the league. Hey, you know what? If we could finish 12th, I'd be absolutely. If we finish where we are right now, Paul Davenport, I would be absolutely delighted. 12th would be a very happy place to end up. Okay, cool. Let's just talk about Tom Pell, who was the head of the academy, who's just he's moving in December to a Premier League club. That's been announced as Tottenham Hotspur. All you can say on that, I think, is fair play to him. It's an incredible job offer. To go to a top 6 side, one of the big boys. He'll have a huge pay rise, and a job at one of, for all the jokes one can make about Tottenham, one of the biggest clubs in the world. And fair play to him. We'll see. It's good to hear that Stephen Avery is going to do. They're going to be doing some of the interviews. That's good. Keep that knowledge going. But yeah, fair play to Tom. Fair play to Will Abbott, who's also gone. Fair play to there's a couple of executives that have left the club. I think they've shown that we are moving in the right direction. Unfortunately, when you do well, unfortunately for us, until you have that sort of Category 1 status in the academy, for example, you're going to get people poached. But as long as they're being poached and going to the Premier League, I don't think it's the end of the world. As long as they're being poached and not going to Crystal Palace, I think it's all Millwall. I think it's something we can probably live with. And then just finally, before I go, because I know it's 8:15 on a Monday night, fair play to the women, and congratulations to the women. They won at Sunderland on Sunday afternoon, to go top of the WSL 2, isn't it called? So they're 3 points clear. I think they haven't lost a league game since November of last year. They look really, really good. They've recovered from dropping some points against Ipswich with 2 really good results in the Northeast. So hopefully we will have WSL 1 at the bank next year, which I think is great for everybody. All right. I'm going to call it there. It's been a long weekend. I hope everyone enjoys the international break. I'll be back probably a week Wednesday. I'm not going to do one this week. I'm going to go hang out with some friends and forget about Charlton for 10 days or so. But have a good rest of your evening. If you're listening on the pod, thank you so much. And I will see you. The women are at the Valley on Sunday. I'm at the NFL again, so I won't be there. But the women are back at the Valley. They're playing Sheffield United, aren't they? So if you're able to, make sure you get down there and watch. Tickets like £6 or £7. So it's a good family day out. So you can also go see the fact that Karen and Nathan are really similar. It's a little bit freaky. Black shirt, jeans is very much the Charlton look of choice. But yeah, fair play to get yourself down there if you can. All right, everyone, enjoy. Oh, and if you were on the trains coming back, make sure Avanti give you your money back. Don't forget to your delay repay, because it was expensive trains and it was an absolute disaster. All right, everyone, have a good rest of your evening. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Sam. I've seen you in the chat. And I will see you all on next Wednesday for a look at what should hopefully be the most winnable game on the calendar. I'll be host Sheffield Wednesday. I'll see if I can get a Sheffield Wednesday fan on to talk about the absolute nightmare that they're going through at the moment. But all right then, I will see you on Wednesday. Enjoy the rest of your Monday evening. From the Valley Void pod. Touch you all later. Cheers. Bye.